I love a parody musical. I really do. I think just something silly and chaotic and camp can be glorious. And I think that's very much what Unfortunate is trying to go for. This fringe musical, feeling very much in the vein of Wicked, seeks to change the narrative of The Little Mermaid and tell the story from Ursula's perspective. Which, honestly, yes please. I think Ursula is one of the most entertaining villains, and this musical does prove how much it works to see the story told from her perspective. It's clear that this fringe piece of theatre has gotten a lot stronger of a budget. So has Unfortunate swum to the top of the shores, or has it sunk to the deep dark depths of the sea? Let's find out. But if you haven't seen my face before, hi, I'm Ellie, I talk about theatre. I am the most chaotic theatre person on the internet. I do reviews, I do discussions, I do video essays, and if any of that's interesting to you, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me out and helps out the channel. But let's dive into this poor Unfortunate soul. I think the best thing to compare Unfortunate to would be like the early Starkid musicals. You know, that period of Starkid history where they were really focusing on like parody shows and parody musicals. And honestly, it's got very much twisted vibes. If you really enjoy like Starkid musicals, like the early Starkid stuff, especially their sense of like comic timing, especially with like throwing like swear words in or making something family friendly, it feels like that vibe is very similar between this and that. Unfortunate retells the story of The Little Mermaid from Ursula's perspective, and honestly, I think this really works. I think it works for the main reason is that the version of Ursula here very much still feels like the version of Ursula that we see in The Little Mermaid, just without, like, the more villainous tendencies. She still has a lot of her dark magic, she still lives in the same place, she still feels very much Ursula. Whereas I feel like some of these other ones, like, you lose a little bit of something you loved about the original villain. Like, for how much I love Twisted, I really do enjoy Twisted. The Jafar in Twisted is not the Jafar in the original Aladdin. Whereas here, Ursula is loud, she's proud, she's very comfortable in her body, and all of these traits are exactly why you fall in love with her as a villain, and as a character in general in The Little Mermaid. That's something I feel like we really need to commend this musical for, recapturing that voice of Ursula and making sure that they're not cheating her of any of her really iconic traits. What this musical does decide to change is a few of the key plot details. So, this musical, for the most part, follows the same story as The Little Mermaid. You have Ariel, she's losing her voice to Ursula, she's gonna go up and try and marry the prince, and then as she gets the kiss, she's gonna get legs. But it also adds a little bit more backstory to Ursula. It also gives you a little high school flashback, very Wicked vibes in that, and they kind of play off and parody like high school films. I was going to say high school musicals, but it's not quite that. I mean, a little bit. Yeah, you do have like the glasses taking off scene. Is that in High School Musical? I don't think that's in High School Musical. What's that in? Princess Diaries, right? Where she takes off the thing. Yeah. That 90s trope, they parody that. Anyway. The key differences here are that Triton and Ursula aren't related. They're actually ex-lovers who were split apart by Triton's father. And now, many decades later, Ariel is not so bright, and Triton has to go and seek Ursula's help to try and reform Ariel into a more suitable leader of the kingdom. Now, I feel like, in general, this musical has a lot of hit and miss moments for me. I think that comedy is probably one of the most subjective things about theatre. We all know that theatre is what? Subjective. But comedy is probably the most subjective thing. Imagine a subjective tower, if you will. You know where Rapunzel was? That's comedy. I feel like when it's focusing less on just kind of like shoving swear words in and being like, oh, we're anti-Disney, it actually kind of sells itself more in the slapstick moments and the moments where they like dive into just utter chaos. These are the moments that work the most when they're taking like a small set piece from the original film and just twisting it and just playing with it and making it so silly. That is where I feel like this musical really, really shines. Actually, in general, what I will say is Act 1 of this show, I wasn't really massively feeling it. I thought it was fine. I have never seen a show turn itself around as much as this one did in Act 2. When we're actually following a lot more of the plot of the original film, and there's a lot more of the moments where they can play around with that, it feels a lot clearer in what it wants to do. And if everything was as fun as the Act 2 opening number, this show would be a 5-star show. That opening to Act 2 just immediately won me back. So let's break this down a little bit. Let's talk about some of the crude comedy. I think that for the most part, this is where it kind of lost me a little bit. There are some parody numbers where it just kind of feels like they're shoving dick jokes and things in that don't really land as well with me personally. Now, they were landing with this audience, so clearly it's more of a me thing, but I feel like that kind of thing where they're just kind of shoving in like a what the fuck or like a ha, look at it's a dick. I don't know. It feels lazy in some places, but I do feel like there's moments of this type of comedy that work, and I feel like the version of this that works is actually the kind of one-liners that are thrown into Ursula's narration. These actually kind of get the shock factor a little bit better. The lines that they give her feel clever in their crudity. And what's more, I think that it might just be Shawna Hamic's delivery of these, which is so like dry. It just kind of works. It's hard to describe why comedy works. And yes, there is a novelty about seeing characters who are usually very Disney-fied, normally very family-friendly, say something they shouldn't actually be saying. And yeah, I get why it could be funny, it just doesn't really land as much for me as something that feels like it's completely balls to the walls chaos. Like the opening to Act 2. Act 2 opens with Ariel and the chef, Colette, clearly playing off of Colette from Ratatouille, as we see her preparing a fish dish for Ariel to eat. Ariel reacts as you would expect, and honestly, this is where we get a lot of like the really big expressions, and you see Medway's Ariel just kind of start panicking and breaking down, and the reactions really do build. They get bigger and bigger and bigger as she starts to prepare this dish. But then it takes it one step further, and you realize that Sebastian is in the pot. But the thing is, Ali Dart plays both Colette and Sebastian. So to get around this, every time that Sebastian has to pop his head out of the pot, they send Colette down behind the countertop and she pops her head out with really quick and slick costume changes that feel really satisfying. And they keep moving which pot Sebastian is in, and it's this scene that just builds and builds and builds and gets more chaotic and more camp. This is what works. This is what really, really works. It's a funny set piece that plays off an idea from the original film, making it feel even bigger, even sillier, even camper. It's brilliant. It's so fun to watch. If everything in this show was as like slick and funny as that scene, this would be a 5-star show. This would be an easy 5-star show. When this show is doing punchlines like that, when it feels like it's really taking advantage of what it's trying to parody, that's when it really works for me. And it feels like it really does hit its stride with that in Act 2. Let's talk a little bit about the music of this show. It's a bit forgettable, honestly. Now, in a parody musical, I'm not really looking for the best music of all time, you know? But what did make me struggle is that something I don't normally mention, the sound mixing for this particular show was really, really bad. So much so that I couldn't hear a lot of the lyrics of these songs. Now, that becomes a much bigger problem when your music isn't, the strongest element. And a lot of these songs, as a parody musical should be, rely a lot more on funny lyrics, which when I can't really understand what you're saying because your band's too loud, I can't really review it properly. I think there are strong songs here To Be King is probably my favorite song. This, I'd almost describe it as an 11 o'clock number, I guess. It's Triton's final stand, where he realizes he's been wrong this whole time, and he's ready to, like, go and be king and fix this whole situation. It's a really lovely number, and it's completely sold by Thomas Lowe's performance. Sucking on You is silly and camp and just brings it to the nth degree. It's a lot of fun. And honestly, as I've mentioned, Les Persons, I can't pronounce, Le Person? I can't pronounce French words, I'm sorry. The Fish. The Fish. The song that starts Act 2, it's so camp. It's so camp, and I adore it. I also want to take this moment to talk about some of the parody songs in this show. With songs as iconic as the songs from The Little Mermaid, you're going to have some that are direct parodies. And this show has two clear examples of this. One, I think, works really well, and the other, I don't really feel like it does. So, I'm going to take this moment to talk about why I think one worked and why I think one didn't. Where the Dicks Are is the parody of Part of Your World. This is the I Want song in the show. And yeah, I like the style of this. I like what it's going for with the character of Ariel, making her seem a bit more like ditzy. You know, you're trying to make it so that you're rooting a lot more for Ursula than Ariel. And, you know, this song does that. But a lot of it feels like it's crude for crude's sake and doesn't feel like there's like a reason. It doesn't feel like there's actually like, I don't know, something that you're actually parodying here. There doesn't feel like there's a satire behind it. It just kind of feels like I like men because the penis, you know. Lines I didn't think I'd be saying in a theatre review. Anyway. Whereas Ask the Girl really works. They take the idea of Kiss the Girl and throw in consent. It's essentially Kiss the Girl. It works exactly the same. But within that, it just has this little bite of where it's like making fun of the original and something that's left out, making it feel topical and relevant, and adding that little element of satire. It's really, really funny. Of course, both of these songs did get a clear response from the audience, so, you know, maybe it's just me being like, I hate fun things. But it's that element of satire that I feel like really does bring Ask the Girl up above something like Where the Dicks Are. Even though both are fun songs that work in the context of the show. The one song I really didn't like was We Didn't Make It to Disney. I can see what this song is trying to go for, but it feels like the least original thing here. None of these jokes are things that I haven't seen anywhere else. This song very much is trying to like make fun of Disney and make fun of like, oh, if you're ugly, you can't be on Disney. We were the rejected ones, and Disney hates this and that and us because, you know, I feel like these type of jokes have been made 1,000,001 times. It doesn't really feel like it lives up to the mark. On the whole, I think a lot of the music is fine. It serves its purpose, but am I going away singing any of the songs? Not really. What I do have, like, unanimous praise for is this design. Again, it is so good to see a fringe show get a budget. This is great. It feels like they have so many ideas, and so many ideas that have been bubbling up for a little bit, that they've really been able to go fully into now. The costumes are really fun. They're really great. They feel like perfectly like Little Mermaid. They still have that like fringy edge to them, while feeling like just glam enough for this staging. But this set is great. The backdrop with like the tentacles all over it brings you immediately into this world. I love the little hatch at the bottom of the stage that opens up with like the 4 different panels with the purple glow beneath it. This is wonderful. I really, really enjoy the ship and the giant kind of like, what are they called? The netting, I guess, that comes out, and you have like cast members climbing all over them, and it really brings this together. A lot of these elements that they couldn't do when you know, up in Edinburgh at the Fringe, that just pushes this even further. It strikes a really nice balance of having that fringy feel, but also being able to go fully into these ideas that they wouldn't be able to do in a Fringe venue. And let's talk about this cast. Shawna Hamic is Ursula. She is Ursula. She embodies, like, the confidence. She embodies the style. She is so confident speaking to the audience on that stage. You really warm to her, like, instantly. She is fantastic in this role. I really enjoy Thomas Lowe as Triton, a really different version of Triton than the one in the film. And I really enjoy his journey throughout the show, especially as we get into Act 2 and you really see him take his moment, especially in the song To Be King. Ali Dart is the best thing about this show. Ali Dart is just phenomenal. She is amazing. Every role that she gets to do, she feels like she adds her own little twist to. The constant multi-rolling and switching of hats is fantastic. She gets some of the strongest comedic moments. She's an absolute treat in this show. River Medway gets a character that I'm not really enthralled by, due to necessity of the plot, is basically character assassinated in this show. I think Medway performs the stereotype well, you know, but I feel like it took me a while to warm to her character a little bit more. It's actually within a lot of her physical acting and her facial expressions and like the over-the-topness that I feel like her character really does get to shine. Julian Capelli, camp. They come out as like Ariana Grande, and honestly, they are so hot. I love them in this show. I really love them in this show. They feel like they're such a bright spot. It's a really playful betrayal. I just adore them in this show. And finally, completing this leading cast is Jamie Morrison as Prince Eric. If you thought Ariel's character assassinated, this man is a great like satire, I guess, of the spoiled rich kid. He crashes a boat and instantly just gets his father to buy him a new one. He's like never read a book a day in his life, let's say that. If anything, I feel like he's the true villain of this show. I really do enjoy his portrayal. He kind of just goes balls to the walls with the just incessant chaos, I guess, of his character. I really enjoy his portrayal. This is a great cast. This cast are great. They all do a great job. I like them. Good. I think it's such a rarity to see a show just completely win you over in the second half when you were struggling with the first half. I wonder how much this is down to like sound mixing, and honestly, I'm really down to go and see this again. And, you know, hopefully when I can actually get more of a sense of the lyrics, I'd probably appreciate Act 1 a lot more. I think it's a really fun show. I think it plays with the concept well. I think everything you want to be in here is here. I think Ursula is so, like, perfect as a protagonist here, and she still feels so much like the character that you fell in love with in the film. If you're a massive fan of Starkid and that kind of parody musical, I feel like this is sure to be a great part of your world. I don't know how proud of that joke I am, but what do you think? Have you seen Unfortunate either at the Fringe or this new version? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you did enjoy this video, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me out, helps out the channel. Here's some links to my videos on screen right now, and a link to my Instagram if you want to drop me a follow over there. But that's it for me today, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.